Hey, I'm Srini, the creator of Maximize Your Output with Mem. Remember the game Mad Libs from when you were growing up? Well, what if I told you that Mad Libs was actually a really powerful way to unlock the power of your creativity and thinking inside of Mem? It's a fantastic way to actually understand how bidirectional links work. And in this video, I'm going to show you how you can use the concept of Mad Libs to actually make connections between your ideas in a way that makes sense. Now, let's get to the tutorial. So one of the reasons I wanted to do this video is because of the fact that a lot of people like the idea of being able to make connections between their ideas, but they don't really understand what that means. And what I realized after about a year and a half of using Mem is that Mad Libs is a really great way to understand bidirectional links. So chances are you probably remember the game Mad Libs from when you were a kid. You would basically fill in the blanks and you would end up with these really funny sounding stories. And funny enough, that's actually what using bidirectional links inside of Mem looks like. So what I want to do is I want to go through two examples, one which actually shows you how to capture and connect ideas, and one that's just absolutely absurd. And one of the things I want you to notice when we go through the absurd example is why your titles are so important. Good titles of your notes are ultimately what make them connectable. So let's go into the first bidirectional links example. What I'm going to do here is just fill this in. And so here we're just going to capture different ideas as they come off. So what I'm going to say is once upon a time in a far off banana obsessed society, there was a banana loving baby. And this wasn't ordinary. It loved to eat bananas for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And make banana flavored dishes for every meal. And it danced just not for fun, but to grow a giant banana tree. And we can say banana obsession was the talk of the banana obsessed society. And so what you're seeing here is basically how we're connecting a bunch of different ideas, all of which really don't make any sense at all. And we're basically just recreating all of this. And so what you're seeing here basically is how we're capturing a bunch of ideas, but you can see the fact that this is just absolutely absurd. It doesn't make any sense. We're talking about a banana obsessed society and a banana loving baby that loves to eat bananas for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And you can see how this emulates the game Mad Libs that we used to play when we were a kid. So we went through an absurd example just to show you how this concept works and how you can use it to capture ideas. Now let's actually look at an example that makes more sense. So we're going to actually use a bunch of notes that I already have inside of my knowledge base and capture new ones. So one of the things I know is I have a note titled A Personal Network of Knowledge. And I'm going to say, I discovered that titles increase the connectability of your notes. And this wasn't just a simple discovery. It changed the way that I capture new notes with an eye towards existing notes. Capture ideas as they occur, and how I develop ideas when they're ready. And so you can see here, the titles make a big difference in terms of your ability to connect your different notes. So I can keep filling in these different blanks here, but this is the process of connecting notes. So what we can do now is we can actually capture some new ideas that occur to us in this process. As I started to build an AI second brain in MEM, I found the personal network of knowledge incredibly helpful. So you can see here that basically what I've done is I've used a bunch of existing notes, but here I actually captured a new note in the process. And you can see here that we can keep just adding different notes that we have inside of the knowledge base. And what we're starting to do is we're actually assembling a much more coherent sentence. So what you can see in this process is that very much like Mad Libs, the only difference being here, we're actually doing something coherent. We're actually using titles of our notes to make connections between your ideas. So in a lot of ways, bidirectional links inside of MEM, when you basically connect different notes, is like a game of Mad Libs. And so what you're doing here is you're really just saying embed links to notes and other sentences. And that's actually one of the keys to making connections between your ideas. It's not just about saying link this idea to that idea or just say, hey, this is a note that's related to this one. But instead, what you're actually doing is you're basically writing a note as you would write a Mad Lib. So and just to recap this idea, basically what you're doing is you're creating Mad Libs. So if we go back to our absurd example, you'll see here that we can basically just capture crazy ideas. And of course, this is just incoherent nonsense. And this is why the titles of your notes ultimately determine everything. And one of the reasons I think it's so important to use good titles is because they do genuinely increase the connectability of your notes. They make it easier to create content faster. They enable you to basically make connections between different ideas in your knowledge base. So we have these two examples you can see here. And the first one here is absolutely nonsensical. And the second one is actually much more coherent. So the key to all of this, believe it or not, is having good titles of your notes. So when you are going through this process of writing and making connections between your ideas, the easiest way to think of it is as if you are playing a game of Mad Libs with the various notes inside of your knowledge base. So hopefully this has been helpful and has simplified and clarified the idea of how to use bidirectional links inside of MEM. But once you have good titles, you're just effectively playing a giant game of Mad Libs. And that is what people mean when they say make connections between your ideas. So by thinking of it as a game of Mad Libs, or by thinking of every single note that you capture as a sort of Mad Lib using your existing knowledge, the concept of bidirectional links becomes much more useful. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below.